They say that a man's greatest honor is to speak about a man that is even greater. They say to be chosen to speak and celebrate a man's life is the greatest tribute one can ever give. I was married 2 months ago and had that great man speak at my wedding. He was my best man. I remember looking at him and thinking, God, I hope he doesn't screw this up. But he delivered the most heartfelt, sincere, genuine, funny speech I believe anyone has ever heard. I knew how difficult it would be for him to stand up in front of 500 plus people. He wanted to and tried so hard to make me proud, and I was. I've never been any prouder until today. Unfortunately, I won't have the opportunity to reciprocate that feeling back to him and speak at his wedding. So I guess this has to be my best man speech to him. Let me take you back to when John was a kid. John was the type of child that loved anything to do with sirens, emergency vehicles, and big moving machinery. If he ever saw lights flashing, he forced my mom and dad to drive after those vehicles all around the city so he could see where they were going. He had to know. If he ever saw a snowplow go by, he would run to the window like it was the first and last time he was ever going to see one. He said to my mom once about a family friend who drives one, "Mom, if he was my dad, I'd be so proud of him." You see, that was John. Even as a child, he was pure, respectful, honest, intense, and he had a God-given gift of sensitivity. Fortunately, with his life being cut short, he was not able to fulfill his childhood dream of becoming a garbage man. John would run out when the garbage man would come. They would throw the garbage together, and the man would let him push the button to crush it. He was so happy, he was so excited. Then John would get on his bike and follow him and help him throw the garbage along the man's route all around the neighborhood. They would then come back, sit in the garage and have a drink, talk and relax. I'm not really sure what they would even talk about. We were sitting around the table the other night reminiscing about that story, and someone made a good point about it. Imagine in today's age telling someone that the garbage man took your 7-year-old child and that your boy spends his Thursday mornings drinking his juice box in the garage while the garbage man is having a beer, drinking on the job at 10:30 in the morning. We call those the good old days. When we were kids, we'd spend every second of every day together. That's how close we were. His laughter was infectious and crippling. When you would hear it, you couldn't help but laugh with him. It would fill a dark room with blinding light. His face, that smile, those eyes, you could read it like a book. You knew exactly what he was thinking, what he was feeling, and what he was about to do. John was a star athlete in everything he played, excelling in soccer and tennis, basketball, and finally his most favorite hobby of all, working out. He was 2 years younger than me, but played with all my friends and on all my sports teams. This cultivated him to be better than most in his age group, but more importantly, it fueled competition, a burning desire for him to be just as good as his older brother. We spent our time playing outside, playing Nintendo, and pretending to be WWF wrestlers. In those days, my mom found herself running to Consumers Distributing, constantly buying and replacing the remote controls my brother would break every time he would lose a Nintendo game. He couldn't stand losing and refused to be beaten. One winter day, we were building a fort in the snow, and we started wrestling WWF style. was able to drop a flying elbow on him and hold him down for a 3 count. I stood up and said, "That's right, I'm the champ. Got the title." I walked away, leaving him there crying and angry. There was a pile of snow at the base of my grandmother's window, as well as a basket of clothespins. I'm not exactly sure why I was there, but I recall standing under one of those old school clotheslines that extended to the neighbor's yard, and from it was hanging a yellow boat rope. In the meantime, I think John turned green and became the Incredible Hulk. Not accepting to be beaten, he couldn't contain himself. He ran over to me, grabbed me from the back, wrapped the yellow rope around my neck, and kicked my legs out from underneath me. I fell down, and so did the clothesline, breaking my collarbone. I saw John run away, thinking that my dearest brother was going to go get help. To my dismay, he was too busy screaming, "The champ is down! The champ is down!" and that he was the new and undisputed World Wrestling Federation champion of the world. And yes, to this day, he's still a champ. My dad came home and was mad that we were fighting yet again and that we broke the clothesline. "What's the matter with you? You're supposed to be the oldest," he said to me. So he did what he knew best. As a loving, old-school European dad, he beat me for John breaking my collarbone. John was a special child, far from ordinary. He was an incredible talent at all that he did. He was imaginative, creative, and hardworking. Although he finished in top of his police college class, in elementary school he came home with all D's. During report card time, with a straight face, he somehow convinced my parents that for whatever reason, he didn't receive his report card that term, and that his teacher still must have it. 3 weeks later, our neighbor and good family friend came over with an envelope. He explained to my parents that he found an envelope jammed into his wood pile on the side of the house, and that it had been addressed to John. My parents opened it, and to their disbelief, it was John's report card. You see, even at a young age, he already had the intuition to avoid danger, especially when pertaining to our parents. John had incredible passion. He was intense with everything he did. He had a contagious smile and sparkle in his eyes. There was an energy about him that even he could barely contain. He lived his life based on principle. Right was right, and wrong was wrong. John was the essence of compassion, duty, and style. He was a simple man with simple, hard values instilled by our Croatian culture and by 2 loving parents that shaped and molded him into the man he became. He was a role model, and he set the standard what every son should be to his family. I was asked in an interview a few days ago, what do I think drove John to be a police officer? 2 things came to mind. The first one was presence. John and I went to eat something after bar one night at one of those breakfast places, and in walked 2 ETF police officers. The one guy in particular was about 6'8", had to have been about 300 pounds, all muscle. The look on John's face was priceless. He was in such awe of that officer that he had food falling out of his mouth. Now that alone told a story that will one day be his legacy. John wanted to be that guy. He wanted to be ETF. He wanted people to stand there and also and have food fall out of their mouths when he walked into a room. The irony here is it was actually an off-duty ETF officer who was the first on scene to help Johnny. Thank you to that man. The second thing that drove John to be a police officer was that he wasn't afraid to stand up for what is right. After going to the gym together and maintaining our pump, John wanted to go to the mall to eat at the food court. He loved the mall, especially Sherway, and all that it had to offer. As we were sitting there eating, 3 teenagers, maybe 13, 14, 2 boys, 1 girl, were sitting there throwing cups of ketchup. The floor and the tables in front of them were completely covered in red while they were laughing like immature morons and disrupting everybody around them. An older lady, Filipino, must have been the janitor on duty at that time. She went over and kneeled down and started wiping and cleaning up the mess. Well, then it just got worse. They took another cap and threw it to the left, saying, "Hey lady, you missed a spot." Keeping her head down, she crawled over and started cleaning up the mess. Then they threw another one in the opposite direction. Again, "Hey lady, you missed a spot," and laughing uncontrollably. Everyone in the food court looked on in disgust. This could have been a scene from that show, What Would You Do? Then in a split second, John flew out of his seat, throwing every single seat and chair and table out of his way to get to that poor Filipino lady. He was so scary that the kids were frozen watching him come at them. I was scared watching him leave. He pulled all 3 kids out of their seat at once and dragged them to the counter to get napkins, then dragged them back, screaming at them. He picked the Filipino lady up off the floor by her arm and proceeded to make the young punks clean the floor all around her feet. The lady felt bad and again dropped down to help those kids. John immediately pulled her back up beside him. One kid, being cocky, stood up with her. He screamed at him, "This is clean? Is this how she would have cleaned it for you? Get back down there before I start mopping the floor with you." And oh yeah, then he said to him, "By the way, you missed a spot." And kept them wiping and cleaning the mess they made till it was spotless. When they were done, he told them that if he ever saw or heard of them doing this to anyone again, he would find them and, well, I'm sure you can imagine the words that came out of his mouth. As they ran out of the food court crying, the crowd stood up to give John a standing ovation. You see, to that lady that day, John was 1 in a million. He had 0 tolerance for bullying and abuse. John was the type of man men wanted to be. He had presence, he had integrity, he had character. Man, did he have character. He was authentic. What you see is what you got. Very simple. He is the guy that women loved and wanted to be around. He had tenderness, respect, loyalty, courage. That's what makes him a terrific brother, son, and uncle. He had qualities that are only written about. But to have seen John as a father, that is where he really would have shined. He spent all of his days off with his niece, Lila. She was the love of his life. He demanded daily pictures from my sister, so he could share them with everyone he met. He would drive an hour to see her, be with her for only an hour, and then drive another hour home. He would fit her in whenever he could. Why? Because that's what a real man does. He makes time when there is none. He is the guy that takes her for ice cream and comes home with 4 new outfits for his little princess. He is the guy that goes to Whole Foods and buys organic filet mignon just to have my sister mush it up into baby food. Why? Because nothing was good enough for his little Lila. You see, he wasn't trying to teach her to be a lady. He was showing her how one was to be treated. My only regret is that Lila's future boyfriends wouldn't have the chance to meet him. But I'm sure her mom, and especially her dad, can tell her all about him. John was a big guy with a big heart. He performed acts of kindness that were very special. They were even more amazing because he didn't tell anybody about them. My sister received a message on her phone from someone we didn't know when we were in the hospital. The message that was left to my sister the other night was this: "You don't know who I am. I'm sorry for calling like this, but I knew your brother quite well. Sorry for your loss. I met John a few years ago and was involved in a serious domestic abuse situation. John came to the call. He was really nice and nice enough to leave his card and said for me to call him if I needed anything. So I did many of times, as I had nobody else to talk to. He made time to talk to me or to see me always. I had 2 small children and I'm raising them alone. The last time I spoke to John was because my dog had died. My children were crushed, and it was even worse because I couldn't afford to buy them another. I proceeded to tell John all about it, and according to the new rules of the condo, we were not allowed to have any new animals once existing ones died. But 1 week later, John showed up at my place with a puppy in his arms. It was the exact dog that my kids wanted. I can't believe he did that for my kids and for my family. Again, I'm so sorry for what had happened. He didn't deserve that. I just wanted to share this story with you. Bye." John had a big heart, both figuratively and literally. When John was in the hospital, we were discussing organ donation with the Trillium team. Donating John's heart was the easy part. Finding a recipient was not. First, the heart needed to be given to someone that was large enough for it. It couldn't be put into a smaller body. John would have loved knowing that fact. I'm just too big. I'm sorry. I'd give you my heart, but I'll tell you what, go put on a couple pounds and come back in 2 years and I'll give it to you then. Secondly, John has a rare blood type that only 5% of the population has. The lady with the Trillium Foundation had said that finding a recipient would be difficult because all those criteria would need to be met. It would be an incredible gift, but the probability of finding someone is next to impossible because finding someone is next to impossible. We prayed together as a family and hoped that someone would be a candidate. We needed some good to come out of this tragedy. Thankfully, a recipient was found, and John's heart was successfully accepted. His kidneys stayed in Toronto and were given to 2 recipients. John made Christmas for 3 families, and to them, I'm sure they also felt he was 1 in a million, a hero and a savior. It is comforting to our family that somewhere out there, John's heart will continue to beat. John was truly an angel sent from God. He was given a gift, and that gift was shared with all that knew him. He tried to bring happiness to all of our lives. He gave strength to our family and was the rock that always kept us together. We would like to thank the entire Toronto Police Service, the Police Association, emergency first responders, St. Mike's Hospital, friends and family, citizens of the GTA, and all the officers and public officials who have come here today. We appreciate your support in helping us get through this difficult time. We would especially like to thank the men and women of 22 Division where John worked. They are nothing short of amazing. It was incredible to have the support of John's second family, particularly the members of his platoon. We had a chance the other night to visit John's division and saw the desk he sat at, his locker, and the halls he walked every day. Listening to all your stories about John has made this horrible experience a lot easier for us, and I hope that in John's place, I can continue those great friendships that he has forged with all of you. We would like to thank all of you for coming and taking the time to remember John. I would just like to take one more moment and read to you something that was shared to me on Facebook. It's a question. Hey, police officer, I pay your salary. What do you make? That question, I'm sure, sounds familiar to all of you. The response? I make holding your hand seem like it's the most important thing in the world when someone tried to hurt you. I make those annoying sirens seem like angels when you need them. I can make your child breathe when he stops. I make myself get out of bed at 3 a.m. to risk my life to save people I've never met. I make myself go to work for your family's safety, a duty that I will die for. I make myself work birthdays, holidays, nights, anniversaries, and disasters. Today, I might make the ultimate sacrifice to save your life. I make a difference. What do you make? Thank you, all of you, that make that difference, just as my brother John did. We give thanks for the life of a man I'm so proud to call my brother. The unique, the intense, the sensitive, the extraordinary and irreplaceable John, whose beauty, internal and external, will never be extinguished from our minds and hearts. Johnny, tell God to get you a pair of 200-pound dumbbells. I'll be there to spot you when we see each other again. Love you, Brizzo.
Some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves the soul to bleed. Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need. I say love, it is a flower, and you, it's only seed. It's the taken, who cannot seem to give, and the soul afraid of dying that never learns to live. When the night has been too just remember in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, lies the sea that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the